An entitled Karen demands my seat at a restaurant, and when I refuse to give it up, she lies to the manager saying that I stole it from her. Things got so bad that the police had to show up, as this lady and her son were threatening to fight me, causing them to get taken away in handcuffs. Here's what happened. So this just happened, so I'm still pretty upset about it. I went to California Fish Grill, CFG for short, for a late lunch. It was a pretty standard ordeal. I ordered my meal, grabbed a drink, and made sure to grab a small table with only 2 seats, so I wouldn't take up too much space. Not that it really mattered, because the restaurant was fairly empty with plenty of tables. As I'm casually sitting at this small table for 2, an entitled Karen actually came up to me and asked me to move. I was a little bit puzzled, because she came in after me and the table I was at appeared to be untaken, and there were plenty of other available tables around the restaurant, so I asked her why, and she said she wanted a table big enough for her and her son. At this point, I told her I wasn't going to inconvenience myself when there are plenty of other open tables in the restaurant. She could simply go somewhere else and sit with her son. And at this point, this entitled Karen then started getting frustrated with me, telling me that I needed to respect my elders and that her son would not be able to sit at another table. But I just ignored her though, because honestly, it was just not my problem. So this entitled Karen then walks off and has the absolute audacity to lie to a manager saying that I took her table and that I was not willing to give it back to her. She brings the manager over and explained that her son is very upset that I took their table and it was hurting his feelings. We had a few minutes of back and forth before the manager gives me this look of them basically silently saying, I don't make enough money to deal with this, please just move. So whatever, I get up and I just go to another table, and this entitled Karen glares at me the entire time. But you know what, I glare right back, and she is sitting by herself. At first, I thought she was just a liar and didn't have a son. Maybe she just wanted to abuse what little power she had. After like 10 minutes though, this guy walks in with a full suit and tie, maybe 40 to 50 years old, and approaches this lady and calls her mom. They exchange some words and he starts glaring at me too. At this point, I'm just annoyed and tried to eat my lunch in peace. So her son, a fully grown man mind you, shouts at me across the restaurant and asks me if I think it's funny to disrespect his mom like that. And I just look at him puzzled because I have no idea what he's talking about. He then shouts again, yeah, you in the hat. So I just ignore him because this is honestly so dumb. As he continued to harass me, I decided to just flip him the bird, and this is what set them off, because this entitled Karen and her son go off on me in a way that I honestly never expected. So this lady and her son lost it. They got up screaming and yelling and just causing a massive scene in the restaurant. The son then threatened me, saying that we were gonna fight. He asked me if I liked being such a smart aleck, so of course I had to let him know that it was better than being an absolute moron like him. This commotion resulted in the police being called by the manager, who once again clearly was not getting paid enough to deal with this. They showed up after an unclear amount of time, walked right up to this lady and her son and asked them to leave. Now you would hope that this would be the end of it, but it only gets worse. This entitled Karen starts going off about how I stole her table and how I was harassing her, as well as how it all started. Now this poor police officer looks down at me, casually sitting at my table, eating my food, and tells this woman that I don't seem to be bothering anyone at the moment. So this entitled Karen then singles out the manager, hoping that they will corroborate their story, but the manager explains in great detail that this woman had come in and started to harass me. She then asked the woman and her son to leave, but at this point they both refused because they had paid for their food and said they had a right to sit at any table for as long as they wanted. I think we all know where this story is going. After refusing to leave, this entitled Karen and her son were cuffed and escorted away, and in the end, I made sure to move to her table as she left, just to rub salt in the wound. This is absolutely crazy to me. I mean, who goes into a restaurant ready to pick a fight with someone all because they're sitting at the wrong table? Honestly, after reading through this, I had to ask myself, are they not at like a Waffle House or something like that? Because this sounds like something that would happen at a Waffle House. Regardless, the lady in this story who was harassing the original poster is completely out of line. I mean, if you want somebody to move seats, you just ask him kindly and say, hey, this is my favorite seat that my son and I like to sit at. Is it okay if we switch seats somehow? And then maybe see where it goes from there. But to then start lying and just get the manager involved just to try and get your way like some kind of weird toddler is honestly such an entitled thing to do, and it's so gross and disgusting. And worst of all, it didn't have to go this far. If that man had just kept his mouth shut and tried to enjoy whatever lunch they were trying to have at this restaurant, they literally could have avoided having the police show up, as well as getting cuffed and escorted out. It is so unfortunate when people act this way, but it's also awesome to see that the original poster kept their cool the entire time. I mean, they did not miss a beat for a second. They handled it with a lot of class, and they definitely proved this entitled Karen wrong. And in the end, they got their seat back. So hopefully the next time this entitled Karen wants something, she does a resort to lying to the police just to try and get what she wants. My entitled cousin is constantly causing disruptions in my house, taking things that are not hers, and abusing privileges that we willingly give her, and it's honestly so exhausting, and I cannot wait for her to move. So my cousin, let's call her Bella, is the second oldest amongst her 4 siblings. I first noticed her entitled tendencies when she asked my mom if she could come to our house on that one Sunday night so she can use our Wi-Fi to research her lessons. For context, she's a teacher, and she just returned to our town after being away for so long. They do have Wi-Fi in their home, but it is very slow. My mom agreed, thinking it was just a one-time thing, since Bella knows that we have a very limited internet data plan. She came to our house, used our Wi-Fi for 3 hours, thanked us, and then left. Then, the next day, guess what? She came back, and she did this the next day after that as well, and so on and so on. She also started using it an hour or 2 longer. I got really concerned, so I told my mom, and she just shut me off, because I was apparently being rude or something like that. In the end, our internet connection that usually lasted us a month, now didn't even last 2 weeks, and that's when my mom started getting concerned. So when Bella came again, my mom told her that we lost our connection, and we don't know what it will be coming back. She stopped coming to our house for that reason after that, so I thought maybe she wasn't as entitled as I thought. Maybe she was just clueless. But then, every time she visited, I noticed she would knock or call us once, and then would barge in immediately if nobody answered. That is until the time came when she didn't even bother knocking anymore. She would just straight up open the gate and would go into our house. She would come in and ask me what I'm doing, and then she'd start looking at the leftovers on our table. If she liked something, she would eat it, and I'm too flustered to even say anything. One time, I made dumplings for dinner. I eat pretty early, so about 5 o'clock, and the dumplings were already ready. She was at our house just to talk to my mom, and of course, she went to the kitchen just to ask what I'm doing. I made just enough for the people in my house, so needless to say, I was pretty annoyed when I came back and I found out that she ate 3 of my dumplings. And you know what? I got really mad, so I told her to stop treating our house like a free restaurant. But I was shut down by my mom for being rude, which I'm still pretty angry about. She would also go to our garden and ask for fruits and veggies. She'd ask us for a single lime, only to then take probably more than a kilo's worth. Another incident was when she suddenly went inside our gate and harvested all the ripe papayas on one side of our tree without even asking. So I snuck up on her and I asked her what she's doing. She looked at me and said, "Oh, I fired papayas from the street and I thought I might harvest it for you." I replied to her by saying, "Thanks, how many is that, by the way? We're planning on feeding it all to our chickens. Would you like to do the honors?" After I said that, it was pretty hilarious looking at her face getting mad that one by one she lost all the papayas that she had worked so hard to steal. Eventually, she ratted to my mom, so I was reprimanded for not letting her keep just one, but I just shrugged it off. Now Bella also has a daughter that we'll call Francine. This is also not her real name, and unfortunately, she is just as entitled as Bella. She gets really jealous of stuff that we have, so we caught her multiple times in the act of trying to steal whatever caught her fancy. At first, she would ask if she could have something, and would compliment the object of her desire, which was a clear indication that she was eyeing up whatever you had. For example, she really liked my markers, and would say, "These markers are so pretty." It's a 36 color marker set, which cost me a lot of money, but I needed it for school. She then follows up that compliment by saying, "I want it." And when I tell her no, she cannot have it, she responds by saying, "Oh, I could just buy another one." I kept replying, "No, you cannot have it." But eventually, it only led to her whining, and then eventually her telling on me to my mom. Thankfully, my mom doesn't really like that kid that much, so she basically just encouraged her to go to her mom and see if she'll get her one. My sister Nina especially dislikes her because she keeps trying to steal her things. Nina loves pretty things, so her room really looks pretty. Her bags are also beautiful, including her notebooks and all her stationery. She has cute keychains, cute clothes, and a nice collection of art supplies, and that really seems to rile Francine up. So every time she visits, she has tried to steal 1 or 2 of Nina's stuff, but she always gets caught every time. But the audacity to whine and get mad at us for not letting her steal from my sister honestly makes me mad. She also looks at Nina's clothes and tells her, "I'm calling dibs on this when it's my size." And my sister always replied by simply saying no. No explanations, just a simple no. And of course, this spoiled entitled child would always tattletale on us, and it's honestly just so annoying. And anytime my sister's clothes have been in question, Nina always says, "Look, it's my clothes. I decide what I want to do with them." And because of Nina's frankness, most of our relatives think that she's a brat for not giving her things to these entitled people. And honestly, I really don't get the audacity. All of Bella's siblings and their kids turned out respectful and good-mannered, but I really don't know what happened to Bella. And now her kid is just as entitled as she is. But she's still young, she can still change and improve. But I don't know if that'll happen when everyone's coddling her. My sister and I turn into the bad guys when we reprimand her and tell her what's wrong with her attitude. Even mom thinks we're rude, even though she doesn't like Francine. Thankfully, Bella got assigned to a different city, so we thankfully won't be seeing her or Francine much these days. But unfortunately, it's nearing Christmas vacation, so I'm pretty wary they'll come over again and demand gifts, just like they did last year, and I'm honestly just hoping that that doesn't happen. Yeah, that's some crazy entitlement right there. It seems like Bella is a really bad example for her daughter, and she's basically teaching her that she can get whatever she wants, which is not how the world works in the slightest. Hopefully, while she's away in a different city, she can learn some better manners and learn that you can't just take things from people simply because they're family. Food, internet, whatever it is, there are lines that you just can't cross without some kind of social repercussions, and hopefully one day these people see that. My friends and family are saying I'm being too picky for turning down my most recent date, who honestly just rubbed me the wrong way, and I honestly am not sure what to do. So I recently decided to start dating again after taking a year-long break to get over a difficult relationship. I have met a few people throughout this year, but I never really felt genuinely ready to get back into it, so I would see people casually, but would avoid anything too serious. I met a guy through some mutual friends of mine at a party a few months ago. They told me that we had a lot in common, and they were absolutely right. He likes to travel, he likes to cook, he practices the same dance style as me, he is also an avid hiker and cyclist, and he also likes to run. Not to mention that he's also an interesting person to talk to. We really hit it off, so I agreed to several more dates. Last weekend, he came over so we could cook together, and we started talking about our jobs. He was complaining that his job required a COVID vaccine, as well as having the boosters, and that he was able to fake it with some forged documents. He asked me if I got vaccinated, and I said, of course I did. I work in the medical field. He already knew about my work, and we talked about it a lot on other dates, so I was kind of surprised that he would think otherwise. He then asked me if I had gotten all my other vaccines, and I told him, well, of course, I have all my vaccines taken care of and up to date, and I have to keep them updated, not only because there are several vaccines, but also because they are mandatory in my domain. He told me that I should have just faked it like he did. I shrugged and I told him that I had nothing against vaccines, and I saw them as beneficial, especially with my line of work, where I come in contact with blood and other body fluid on a regular basis. He then told me that he was not vaccinated at all, and that his mom is extremely against modern medicine, so he was raised with only natural medicine. He then said that he turned out perfectly fine, so he doesn't understand why so many people feel the need to get them. Apparently, his mother practically disowned one of his half-brothers for getting his children and himself vaccinated. He asked me if I would get my future children vaccinated, and I said I would if I had any, and after I said that, he went completely quiet and the subject quickly changed. In the end, this honestly just did not sit right with me, so as well as we clicked on everything else, I decided to end it after the date was over. He went in for a kiss and asked when we could see each other again. I just told him simply that I don't think we are a good match. He asked if it was because of the vaccine thing, and I admitted that it absolutely was. He then told me that he was very disappointed, and that he thought I was more open-minded than that. I thought this was the right thing to do, but now I have several friends, and even a few family members saying otherwise. Some of my friends are saying that it's no big deal, and that it was unfair of me to reject him for his life choices and beliefs. They said it would be like rejecting someone for being vegan, but I completely disagree, mostly because I wouldn't reject someone because of their dietary choices. My sister said I was being too picky, and that I would end up alone if I reject someone for something so menial, and that this is why I'm single in my mid-20s. This one stung, so I decided that it might be good to get some outside opinions. I'm worried they might be right to an extent, and that I may be too critical, but I am also conflicted because this genuinely seemed like a deal breaker to me. I am starting to worry that I may really end up alone, and I honestly don't know what to do. I think we're looking at this completely wrong. First off, you can make a decision on how you want to raise your future kids if you have any. So if you say you want to get them vaccinated, well, congratulations, you can get them vaccinated. And I don't think you're being close-minded by making that decision. What's unacceptable, in my opinion, in this situation is that this guy would lie and forge documents just to prove that he's vaccinated, even though he isn't. That's a level of fraud that I'm just not comfortable with, and I don't think you should be either. That, in my opinion, is a deal breaker. I personally could care less if someone is or is not vaccinated. That's just my opinion. It's the fact that he would lie to somebody else over something like this that involves his work is a massive red flag in my opinion. I mean, you know best. You work in the medical field, you know that vaccines absolutely are effective, and I completely agree with that sentiment too, by the way. In the end, though, the fact that he would forge documents and lie about something like this for his work is a big red flag, and if anything, let that be the deal breaker. And also, it kind of seems like he has no respect for your entire career. I mean, you literally work with modern medicine, and his family literally sounds unbelievably crazy. So do you really want to deal with someone like that for the rest of your life? I mean, just look at the way his mom was acting. She literally disowned some family members all all because they got their kids vaccinated, which by the way is none of her business. So I think you honestly dashed a really terrible relationship, and I don't think you should be so hard on yourself, because I'm sure you'll find somebody who really will love you for who you are, and I honestly think your family's wrong and their opinions of you are completely misinformed. Today I messed up by eating a special cupcake in the freezer while my husband was at the gym, and boy did this go south very quickly. So I just got home from Thanksgiving in Texas with my parents, and my husband couldn't go with me this year, so he stayed in town and saw our friend while I was gone. But little did I know, he brought home some special homemade cupcakes, if you know what I mean, that cause some very special effects on your body if you ate them. Again, if you know what I mean. Early this morning, he picked me up from the airport, and when we got home, he decided to run to the gym. While he was at the gym, I decided to go to the freezer to get some ice cream. There were several items blocking the way, so my lazy butt decided to not move them to the side to grab it. As I was closing the door, I saw some of those special cupcakes and thought that they were left over from my husband's Thanksgiving that I couldn't be there for. So I pulled one out and I ate it, and I started to do some chores around the house. And soon after, we decided to go to my in-laws' house when he got back to watch the football game. And this is where things really started to spiral out of control. When we got there, I started to feel off and feel panicky. I already deal with anxiety, so I was worried that I was having a panic attack, which hasn't happened in a while. I decided to lay down at first, since I felt a little lightheaded. As I lay there, I felt the panic keep rising, and it honestly wouldn't stop. I decided to go to the bathroom and just blow my nose, since I was basically full-on crying on their couch. I didn't know why I was feeling this way, and it even crossed my mind briefly that it felt like I was coming up from having some very special medicine, if you know what I mean. I just thought my anxiety was higher coming off of vacation and going into the work week. It took me a second, but I looked to the floor and the patterns on it started moving weirdly. I immediately thought back to what I ate today, and that it hit me. I went back to the living room and I asked him to talk to me for a second. Mind you, his parents are right there too, and saw me on the verge of a breakdown when I left to the restroom. So we went up to his mom's office and I asked him if there was anything special in the cupcake that I stole from the freezer. After our conversation, we went back downstairs and his mom asked if I was okay. It was clear I had been crying and was not with it at the moment, so I ended up telling her that I accidentally ate some special brownies from my husband's friend, and I just tried to laugh it off while getting lots of side-eye to my husband. And as I write this is still just the start of our night, and I honestly am not sure how things are gonna go down. This is both equally hilarious and a little bit scary. Maybe next time have your husband label those types of things in the freezer, that way we can avoid going to La La Land in somebody else's house. The original poster also went on to say that they have to go back into work tomorrow at about 8:30, and honestly, I think you should probably just call in sick. You clearly bought a ticket to a ride you never thought you were gonna get on, and it might be better for you to get better before you go back to work, instead of trying to tough it out, because I don't know if toughing it out works in a situation like this. I honestly just wouldn't risk it. But hopefully things work out, and hopefully things are better labeled in the future. Otherwise, who knows when or where this could happen next. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, use the playlist at the top of the description. And the next time you live stream, use the Cream of the Crop music. Search Cream of the Stream on Spotify or whatever platform you use for copyright-free music to use for your next stream.